sweat-inducing excitement, the mind-numbing suspense, the heart-pounding drama. No, we're not talking about the NBA Finals. We're talking about the NBA Free Agency. It has become an entirely different event on its own with all the thrilling player movements in recent years. Many fans tune in with dying anticipation to find out where some superstars will land. Even reporters have embraced the rush as they battle who can break news first. An all-star joining an already stacked roster. A young hotshot getting a lucrative deal. A player getting reunited with his old team. A veteran jumping ship in search of his first title. The wheeling and dealings are aplenty. Sa sobrang dami, it's difficult to keep up. The free agency season has its own brand of spectacle, further proving that in the NBA, there's no such thing as an off-season. That's the headline in tonight's Sports Page.
The hottest headlines.
The integral issue.
Who will join the pantheon of the great?
What's the outlook of the future of sports?
The game changers.
The history makers.
Stories that make sports eternally compelling.
Open the Sports Page.
How fast are you? Can you keep in step with all the changes that are happening in the NBA free agency wars? Because it's happening so fast. Here on Sports Page today, we needed somebody quick, somebody fast, in fact, somebody young, somebody named Aaron Untitled.
Thank you, Sir Seth, for having me once again here on Sports Page. It's always fun hanging out with you guys talking about hoops, and I'm not the only one that's returning to the show. Joining me as well, the one and only Gino Rufino, fresh from Boracay. Let's all note that. Also joining us on the show, man that has impressed beyond belief inside the bubble, NLEX Road Warrior guard, none other than Kiefer Ravenna. And our final guest for today is a man that is still doing a lot of work inside the bubble. It is Meralco Bolt's assistant coach, Coach Ronnie Magsanok. Now, let's start it out very simple. Show of hands. Who has notifications turned on when it's Adrian Wojnarowski tweeting? Because I know I wake up to a ton of those. Coach Ronnie, you're in the bubble. You're still following what is happening in the NBA free agency. Ano bang meron sa free agency na NBA that has so many fans across the world following it?
Well, ano bang meron, I think goes back a few months ago wherein the NBA was able to hold a very successful bubble. And for us in the PBA bubble, we were able to watch the NBA finals and witness history, of course, established by LeBron James. I think stems from the fact that what will the winning teams be able to do? Will they be able to hold the superstars and keep them happy? Will they keep the roster intact? Well, apparently, those questions were answered either by a no or a yes. The Lakers have lost 4 pieces already from their championship roster. Miami Heat have let go of Jay Crawford as well. So I think the interest stems from the fact that will the teams who were winning a few years ago, like the Golden State Warriors, be able to resurrect their campaigns? And as we all know, Klay Thompson tore his Achilles heel recently. So ito yung interest na inaantay ng mga tao. Yung mga hindi nakapaglarong teams, dahil ilan lang naman yung inimbita para makapaglaro ngayon, will be able to see action. I think that will continue to drum up much interest all over the world to see their favorite teams, to see their favorite players once again get back and compete, of course, come December 22.
Kiefer, pang ilan ba sa task list mo pagkagising yung check kung ano yung mga trades or free agent signings? At what point do you check that news in the morning?
Siguro, unang-una, syempre, pagising pa lang makikita mo na eh. Kasi syempre, time difference. That's where everything happens. And ngayon, sobrang interesting lahat na nangyayari. Just like what Coach Ronnie said, everybody's picking up from the bubble, and now for the teams who didn't really have a chance to compete for an NBA championship, I think sila talaga yung gumagawa ng moves for the next season. And less than a month, I think, mag-start na ulit yung NBA. So now's the perfect time to do so, and I've seen so many different teams really try to make big changes in their lineups.
Gino, explain this to me. Is team loyalty gone, done? Wala na yun? Nobody stays. It's all practical. Then the second question, follow-up. Given that the losses of the NBA last year, how can you pay for all these astronomical salaries that are being discussed?
Well, to answer your first question, I think, Seb, that team loyalty has been gone for a long time. I think even for fans have more and more fans have been rooting for players lately instead of the franchise, and I think that's been going on for. You could probably date it back to when LeBron James took his talents to South Beach, and I think that kind of built that whole player movement, player empowerment type of deal with the NBA. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing because you have people from outside of the United States. You know, it's become such a global league that where does somebody from Poland, like, what's his affinity with the Miami Heat? Really nothing. So it kind of globalizes the game in that sense, no? To answer your second question, if I knew the answer of that, I should be the commissioner of the NBA or hold a peace with the league. So I honestly don't know. I mean, off the top of my head, the TV revenue is going to be humongous. Other forms of revenue that they can muster up, because with no fans in the stands, that's a big chunk of the league's revenue that's going to still be lost for this coming season.
Okay, my question to Coach Ronnie, most of these players want to win championships. There are a number of players who have been in the league for a long time. James Harden, for example, has not won a championship. What is the motivation really of the movement? Is it more money or the chance to win a championship, or both?
Well, I think players who already have money have simply the motivation of joining a team which is close to winning a title. And I think decisions by players who are declining player options or going to unrestricted free agency will show you historically that they move towards that direction. Because ultimately, after you get your money from playing, you will also be looked at as could be a winner, never a winner, or made sure that you were a money magnet throughout your career. And I think it really depends on the motivation for different players. For all you know, Gordon Hayward is so close, of course, to Brad Stevens, yet he opted out of his contract and has moved to a different direction. Opted for lesser money, but wanted guaranteed money. So I think championship will always be the best motivation for veteran players. But ultimately, it will boil down to whatever is most important for them at this stage of their careers. So Hayward is an A player, an all-star, but he has been hurt in the last few years. So he just wanted to make sure that his family is secure. While on the flip side, Rajon Rondo was able to do that, winning a championship for the Lakers, and now moved to a different team because he just probably wanted more money as well. He was able to already establish his legacy. Now it's time to earn a little bit more money and mentor a few more young players, like Trae Young in particular.
Kiefer, we would just sit around before and talk about the NBA and free agency and trades and all of that. But when we were talking back then, you weren't a professional athlete yet. Now that you are, umiba ba yung pagtingin mo sa free agency and trades and all that because you are in the professional ranks right now?
Most definitely. I think you'll have a deeper understanding where these players are coming from. Sometimes you'll be able to put yourself in their shoes, whether with what Coach Ronnie said, whether what's the motivation for them to play. Just like, for example, James Harden turning $4 million a month as a salary of $50 million, the first ever player to really get $50 million a year, turning that down and trying to move to a different team and try to connect with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. So it depends. It really depends. But as a professional player, you'll definitely understand their decisions. But then again, it's still entertainment. It boils down to where their security in terms of their family is, kung ano ba talaga yung direction nila moving forward in their careers. So it's fun to see the free agency start moving pa rin hanggang ngayon.
Gino, is there any job in the world that you would say no to for $50 million a year? And if it is, why are you that crazy?
I think it was even more, di ba? Parang $108 million.
Yeah, something a little bit astronomical like that. But I I think if you're James Harden, you've made so much money already that it doesn't matter anymore. Like it's what's an extra couple million here and there per month. It's ridiculous to say it. It really is. But I don't live in James Harden's shoes. So I don't understand how anyone could turn down 1 million pesos. What more 50 million pesos? I mean, I guess it's all relative. And I think for James Harden, he has entered that stage of his career that it's not just about the money anymore.
There's so much more to talk about there because the pace of the developments are just so quick. We'll try as best as we can, that's why Aaron is here, to focus on the key changes that have happened so far and what of these changes that made our guests say, huh? When SportsPage returns.
Since being instituted in 1988, NBA free agency has been largely consequential. Even just a single move can alter the fortunes of a franchise or even the entire league. For our sidebar, let's check out the 5 most memorable moves in NBA free agency in the last 20 years. At number 5, Tracy McGrady joined the Orlando Magic in the year 2000. He instantly became a franchise player after a promising start with the Toronto Raptors. He became a 2-time scoring champion, a multiple All-NBA team member, and just carved out a Hall of Fame career. At number 4, it's Steve Nash returning to the Phoenix Suns in 2004. He was set to re-sign with the Dallas Mavericks, but the deal fell through, which to this day, Mark Cuban deeply regrets. We all know what came next. He became a 2-time MVP and revolutionized the NBA. Speaking of returns, up next is LeBron James returning to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the year 2014. I'm coming home. With those 3 words, the King made an entire state shed tears of joy. He fulfilled his promise of delivering a championship, which made even more people cry. At number 2 on our list is Kevin Durant joining the Golden State Warriors in 2015. It was like putting more pizza on a pizza crust. While the decision will forever haunt him, he has 2 titles, 2 Finals MVP trophies. Oh, he also made a burner account. Never forget that. And at number 1, of course, LeBron James taking his talents to the Miami Heat in 2010. Despite all the controversies, the decision single-handedly changed NBA free agency forever. He showed that players can exercise more power while bringing 2 titles to South Beach. Now let's get back to our questions for our guest. Keith, which moves have you seen that was the one that made you say, okay, this makes a team the number 1 contender so far in the NBA?
Probably if it pushes through. I think the James Harden Brooklyn deal will definitely push Brooklyn to that contender level. And of course, even though the Lakers losing Rondo, Dwight, Danny Green, those guys, I think them getting Montrezl Harrell will definitely solidify their campaign for a back-to-back. And some decisions that really made me question also is the Gordon Hayward deal, where he opted out for lesser money but wanted to go to Charlotte, if I'm not mistaken. Those are probably for me. Those are the deals that I was able to really think about and excited to see happen also.
I think it seems fitting that we ask this man this next question. Gino Rufino, who is the biggest winner out of all of the teams in the NBA free agency so far?
Do you really want me to answer that?
Why do you think I'm asking?
Isn't it not obvious? I think the Lakers. The Lakers have Kiefer has touched base on it. You lose Dwight, Danny Green, and Rondo, and then you get Harrell, you get Schroeder, and you get Wesley Matthews. As of today, so this still could things could still change along the way. So the Lakers got younger. They got arguably a little bit more talent. Now, of course, Rondo is a big loss. Everybody knows that. And the championship pedigree that Rondo and Green have, you cannot match it with this current lineup. But you also have to remember that they took pieces away from the Clippers, arguably their biggest rival in the Western Conference. So that you weaken one team and you strengthen yours. I think they're the winners so far. Of course, things can change, especially in Brooklyn, because that's a lot of firepower if some deals push through. So there's still going to be a lot of movement before the start of the NBA season. But right now, the Lakers, the defending champions, just got significantly better.
Oh, nice. All right. Coach Ronnie, what about you? Who's the one? What's the one move that you kind of scratched your head and was thinking, ano yun?
I really like the move of the Boston Celtics bring along Tristan Thompson. They lost Enes Kanter, but I think the winning pedigree that will be brought over by Tristan Thompson will be able to help the Celtics moving forward. When you go back this time to the question, of course, of Aaron, ano nangyari sa OKC? Bakit biglang nawala si Steven Adams? Ano nangyari sa OKC? Bakit gano'n nalang binitawan si Schroeder? So I think it's all about rebuilding for this franchise. And para sa akin, ano nangyari? Bakit nawala si Chris Paul? So these were key pieces that would have pushed this team a win or two away from a higher level doon sa playoffs. But minsan hindi mo talaga ma-analyze o mabasa na kung ano yung direction ng organization. Those are things that you have to live with. And actually, in the coming days, meron pang mga ganitong tayong makikita in the landscape of the NBA. Pero ang notorious kasi sa mga ganitong decisions is yung New York Knicks. And that's why they have languished in that position, being not a winning franchise, at least in the last decade.
Gino, what do you think? Is it because the recent draft was so-so in the eyes of many? That's why there's so much activity happening right now in the free agency, or was it bound to happen anyway?
I think it was bound to happen. I mean, the draft being so close to free agency, I mean, things just basically was, the spacing between the end of the season, the draft, the free agency, the start of the season, everything was so condensed, and that's why things have gotten a little bit crazy. So everybody's cramming for the start of December 23 Manila time. So there was going to be movement regardless of what was going to happen. I mean, Coach Ronnie was pointing out OKC. It was almost a sure thing, though, that OKC was going to get rid of as many players as possible to get as many draft picks as possible to build for the future and also to trade for assets. And I think that the crazy movement that we're seeing right now is because teams are also trying to figure out what to do for the following season. There's a lot of moving pieces in the NBA, and people are kind of guessing where they're going to end up. So that's why there's a lot of movement.
Aaron?
You know, Kiefer, tama yung sinabi ni Gino. It's all about looking towards next year, and the biggest name that comes up with free agency next year is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Milwaukee got rid of Eric Bledsoe. They got rid of some other pieces. Wes Matthews is now with the Lakers. They bring in Jrue Holiday. Almost got Bogdan Bogdanovic. Is that enough in your eyes? Do you think that that's enough to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo with the Bucks?
Seeing how Giannis has been, what he was been going through for the past few years, especially always leaving the playoffs a little bit too early than everybody of us, how we expected it to be. I think he's really going to that direction of he just wants to win and shut everybody up. You know, as sabi nga ni Coach Ron, you can be a money magnet to all the teams. And if you're Giannis, there's definitely teams who will try to get, move heaven and earth just to get you. I think, he's on his way out. I'd say. I think he's on his way out. And, it's exciting. Especially siguro nag-start na rin mag-move yung Milwaukee.
Let's go to Coach Ronnie. Coach Ronnie, Miami, a team that coming off of an NBA Finals trip, Jimmy Butler threatened bodily harm to Goran Dragic if he did not resign. So indeed, Goran Dragic resigned and brought himself back to Miami. Jay Crowder has left, though. Do you think that there's any moves, or are there any pieces that Miami can maybe add to this lineup, or you would want to see for them to maybe get it over the hump and win a championship?
Well, I think the spot that was left vacant by Crowder is going to be vital for them to fill up. moving forward, simply because Crowder played outstanding basketball, especially in the playoffs. But we talk about the core, we talk about this organization. This is an organization that is a destination organization. And I think players who really want to win, players who want to be a part of organizations who take care of people, I think will keep an eye on a possible move to join this team. Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, Udonis Haslem, these are key names in the whole of the NBA that really shows you what type of team and organization the Miami Heat has formed throughout the years. So that position is going to be imperative that they fill up just to make sure that they have a solid roster. Because right now, what teams are doing is, aside from, of course, from filling up their rosters 1 or 2 years from now, is looking at the Lakers. No? You have to have that barometer wherein all your movements are geared towards facing a possible team either in the first, second, or deeper part of the playoffs. Wala na silang ibang tinitingnan eh. Minsan naisipin mo bakit, minsan naisipin mo para saan. When you go deep into the playoffs, now you will understand as to why. Kasi nasukat na nila yung matchups hanggang sa dulo. And this is a 72 game regular season. And this will be done before the Tokyo Olympics. Nasukat na rin nila yan. And I'm sure that a part of the analytics of the GMs for the players, kasali yan. Players are able to be mentally tough heading to the playoffs. And players will definitely fit into the organization. And I think the Miami Heat will always be one of the teams that will make sound and sensible decisions all the time.
So many names we still have to talk about and where they are going. We'll have everybody back just after this break.
For tonight's That's What They Said, we asked, what's your favorite NBA free agent move so far? Oel Molas says Harrell and Schroeder, young guns with a lot of talent who can help with the back-to-back. Jupiter Chua said Rondo to Atlanta, smart move. Cap Jazz Paler says Kelly Oubre to GSW. I really like Kelly's game from Wizards to Suns, and now he's signed with Steph and Dre. And lastly, Joshua Salud, Avery Bradley to Miami. They added a defensive player. And that has been That's What They Said.
Okay, let's get back to the questions. I want to make this a little bit different. I'm going to say a name, and I want one of the guests to say where you think they're going to go as well as where you think it's best for them to go. And let's start out with Kiefer. Kiefer, you brought him up a while ago. Where do you think James Harden will play next year? But where do you think he should play next year?
I think he should go through that. If it's possible, I think he should go to Brooklyn. I think that's the only destination he could really give himself a big chance to compete for an NBA title. And at the same time, I never thought he was going to leave Houston, actually. So I thought he was always going to be there for Houston. You know, he's brought so much to the city. But then again, decisions happen. But you also have to consider kasi yung health din talaga ng mga players. So if he wants to compete, I think I want to see him in Brooklyn.
Do you think he will be in Brooklyn, though?
I think he's going to be there.
Interesting.
He's going to be there.
Gino, John Wall, where do you think he should play and where do you think he will play?
Can I say he should retire? No. In all seriousness, I think John Wall will end up. I know he's requesting for the trade now from Washington, but I think he's going to end up in Washington. I just think it's such a big risk if you're going to trade for John Wall. The health factor, you need to see him. You need to see some sort of semblance that he can still go. And we haven't seen him play in over a year. So it's going to be a really tricky situation for the Wizards. And wherever they're going to be able to send him, it's going to be a risk. So it's going to have, the contract has to be a factor as well. So I'm not going to be able to answer your question as to where he's going to end up because I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think he's going to be in Washington for the foreseeable future.
Coach Ronnie, last but not least, his name comes up in the offseason every year. Russell Westbrook. What jersey would you want to see on Russell Westbrook that we can see really what he can do on the basketball court?
I know that this is going to be a long shot, but I hope that Giannis Antetokounmpo will have someone like Russell Westbrook along his side. Someone who can take away the pressure from him, and a semblance of a guard who can dominate the game that will ease and make the game easier for the Greek Freak. But I think Russell Westbrook will end up with a big city franchise. So, and talk about his personality, I don't think that he will accept the fact na mapupunta siya sa mga hindi ganun kasikat na mga lugar. And I believe that Russell Westbrook would really want to play his remaining years for a contender. And with the amount of money that he has earned together with James Harden, I think there's no other direction but to move to a big city who's capable of winning a championship. Not in 2 years, not in 3 years, but next year.
I get to ask one more question, and since it's the last question, I'm going to make it about the Phoenix Suns. Kiefer Rufena, what do you think about the moves that the Phoenix Suns did, adding Chris Paul, adding Jay Crowder, and with Devin Booker and CP3 already practicing? Does that mean that the future is bright for the Valley of the Sun?
Definitely the future is bright. But then again, you're in the Western Conference. You have one big hurdle to go through, and I don't think it's going to be really easy going against the King and AD. So, but definitely what Phoenix has done, I think they're one of the low-key winners of the free agency as well. You know, adding up CP3, mentoring D-Book, of course, DeAndre Ayton's there. Although, you know, Kelly Oubre is a little, you know, bit of a loss for them. But, you know, the dog in Jay Crowder can definitely fill the void of Kelly Oubre. So, it's going to be exciting for them. You know, a good mix of young guns and reliable bets with CP3 and Jay Crowder.
Alam mo, si Ronnie, si Kiefer, ako lang, walang mga biases dito. Yung kay Rufino, malinaw na malinaw, malinaw na malinaw. But what an insightful episode of Sports Page. Aaron, let's thank our guests.
Yeah, thank you so much to our three esteemed gentlemen, well, two, and Gino. To Kiefer, welcome back. It seems that it's nice to see you back at home. Coach Ronnie, it's nice to see you still in the bubble. Gino, it's just seeing you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And it's time now for our last look. The NBA free agency holds heavy significance because it could actually dictate the league's landscape. We've seen monumental movements in the last 2 decades or so, and we've witnessed how one player joining a different team can drastically alter the course of history. We always hear that the NBA is a business, but that's also exactly what keeps the league interesting every year. All the player movements keep things fresh and compelling. There's always this air of uncertainty. Not to mention players looking a little weird in their new jerseys. The NBA free agency is not yet over, and we can expect more surprising developments in the coming days, which of course leads to all this important question. Nakatulog na kaya si Adrian Wojnarowski? Hindi pa siguro. We'll find out in the days to come. Thank you to all our guests, and thank you for joining us in this very special episode of your Sports Page.